केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. All together. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति.
Let us take just a moment together. Allow your eyes to gently close. And allow the awareness to merge with your breath. Don't try to change it. Just allow the awareness to become one with the breath. If thoughts come, sensations come, sounds come, any kind of distraction comes, don't worry about it. Don't try to fight it off, but just bring the awareness gently back to the breath. And keep the awareness on that space in between the distractions. You can think of them as wispy clouds that blow across a blue sky on a windy day. Don't allow your awareness to hook into them. Stay focused on the space, the presence, the awareness, the spaciousness between the thoughts. You can add a gentle mantra to it. if you find that the mind wanders too much, you can chant so hum silently to yourself. So on the inhalations, hum on the exhalations. It means I am that. I am one with the creation. I am one with all. I am that. So hum. And as you bring the awareness back and back and back to the breath, let yourself witness if there are places in you in which the breath feels stuck, constricted, not free. Or there are places the mind keeps wanting to run to. Don't analyze them or judge them. Just gently witness it and keep drawing the awareness back to your breath. Back to that spacious awareness between the thoughts. Gently bring your palms together at chest level in Namaste and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of the hands into the closed eyes. And gently open your eyes and lower your hands. Welcome to satsang. We'll begin as always with a question that came in advance and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. theoretically speaking, how does one know when they are egoless? And of course it has to be theoretical, because if one were egoless, who would know that one was egoless? Who would feel proud of the fact that one had become egoless? So that's the irony of the ego. First of all, it's important to realize most of us will never become egoless, as in absolutely without an ego. If we think of the ego only really in a narrow definition in terms of our arrogance or our self-importance, yes, of course, we can develop humility. Spiritual practice is a wonderful tool to develop humility. But the ego is not only that sense of, oh, I'm so great, oh, I'm so important, that sort of false sense of importance. That's not all the ego is. The ego is that entire illusion of, this is who I am. This is where I end and the world begins. That's what the ego does. As we grow as young children and we begin to develop an ego, the ego is that, and it actually is a great benefit as we're growing when we get socialized, because the ego is that which helps us learn. You cannot eat the cookies on your friend's plate because they are not yours. That plate is his. Those are his cookies. If you want his cookies, you have to ask. You can't just reach over and grab the cookies. So the ego is literally that which teaches us, this is me over here. That's someone else over there. Those are his cookies, or that's his truck, or his crayons. All the stuff that we try to teach kids. Don't grab, share. It all, ironically, comes from a development of an ego, of the sense of, this is kind of my space over here, and that's someone else's space over there. And I have to be respectful of it because it's separate from, different than my space over here. So in that ironic way, the ego is actually very helpful in terms of socializing children. The problem is it becomes a hindrance as we grow, because that which plagues us, that which causes us to suffer, that which keeps us in ignorance, in darkness, is not someone stealing cookies off our plate, is not someone taking our trucks or our crayons without asking. It's that sense of separation. It's that sense of being stuck in my body, in my personality, in my identity, in my history, in my personality. And so when we talk about becoming free of the ego, it's not a matter of I'm going to literally have an egoectomy and have it surgically removed from me somehow, that, there'll be a spiritual surgery and somehow it's going to, grab that ego out and throw it into the ether somehow. I become free of it, meaning not that it ceases to exist entirely, but that it no longer runs my show. I no longer make decisions or choices in my life based on it. I no longer am plagued in my mind by the games of the ego. I no longer identify as the self that the ego tells me I am. So the ego is the one that says, you're the prettiest one here. Where the ego is the one that says, you are so ugly, how dare you go out? The ego is the one that says, you're too good for this job. The ego is the one who says, who the hell do you think you are to think you could do that job? You don't know anything. So to become free of the ego is to realize neither of that's true. It's all that false illusion. And of course, to realize that even though I may not have a skill set to do a particular job, absolutely that is true. Lots of jobs that I know I'm not qualified for it. Lots of jobs that each of us is not qualified for. But that has nothing to do with who we are. That who we are is not my qualifications. Who I am is not my body. Who I am is not the knowledge I've acquired, the money I've acquired, the experience I've acquired. That's all stuff that gets wrapped up in the ego. That's all ego self. And again, it's important to realize we're not talking good or bad here. It's not about good or bad. It's about truth and untruth. When we pray, asatoma sadgamaya, lead us from untruth to truth. Tamasoma jyotirgamaya, lead us from darkness to light. Mrityorma amritam gamaya, from death to immortality. We're not talking about lead me from the fact that I always think it's Monday when it's Tuesday. Lead me from this falsehood that I always, I think it's 8 in the morning and it's really 9 in the morning, or that I think it's, that 2 + 2 is 5. It's not that ignorance. It's not that untruth. It's lead me from this false identification with thinking that the truth is this body, this history. I mean, if you say to me, who are you? And I say to you, well, I'm 48 and I was, born in America and I'm from California and I have this degree and I went here and graduated from there and I'm about 5'2" and I'm, female and I'm a sannyasi. So that's true in a lowercase t sense, but we would call that ego truth. It's the truth of the false self. It's certainly true. That is how many years my body's been on earth. It is where the body was manufactured, where the body spent the beginning of its life, the things that the body has done. But it's not the truth of who I am. The truth of who we are is timeless, boundless, infinite consciousness. That, and then when we say from darkness to light, again, from darkness of ignorance, it's not darkness of you are bad, you are a sinner, it's not that. It's the darkness of ignorance. The darkness in which I identify as this body which says, I want more, I need more. More money, more things, more success, more praise, more acclaim. Lead me from that darkness that thinks that I'm not full into the light of knowing how full I am. They chanted this beautiful mantra right before we started satsang that tells us who we are is full. Who we are is infinite. We've been created out of infinity. And anything created out of infinity, anything removed from infinity, removed from wholeness and fullness, is infinite. Right? Infinity divided by 7 billion. Infinity. So no matter how many times we get created, We've been created out of that which is infinite. Therefore, mathematically or spiritually, however you want to do it, doesn't matter which way you go in, we're infinite. Lead us from death to immortality. It doesn't mean, oh God, give me the pill whereby this body will never die. It's not ageless living the Vedic way. It's not some sort of special mantra that's going to keep your hair from going gray or your skin from getting wrinkles or the body from degenerating. That's not what the mantra is. That would be silly. Whether we live to be 80 or 90 or 100 or 125, eventually this body is going to disintegrate. So it doesn't say, oh God, let me have just a long, healthy life. It says immortality. So what are we praying for here? We haven't been chanting a mantra for thousands of years that's saying, oh God, please do the impossible. Oh God, please give me something that is impossible to have. That would be a ridiculous thing to pray for. What are we praying for? It's lead me from that falsehood, that darkness that identifies with that which dies, the body, into the truth, the light of realizing I am the one who is immortal. What is immortal? Soul, spirit, consciousness. That's the prayer. And so when we talk about being egoless, it's lead me into that truth, into that light, into that immortality so that I stop being stuck in my ego. It's a perfect question today for Independence Day. Puja Swamiji was speaking about not being free, being imprisoned, and what it's like and how it's something probably none of us has ever known. And yet, we're imprisoned in our minds, imprisoned by our ignorance, imprisoned by this identification. And so on Independence Day, let us realize that. When you're in a jail that someone else has put you in, there's very little you can do. But this is a jail that we can actually do something about. Oh God, let me be free of that darkness, of that untruth, of that false identification. And that's in our hands. That's the freedom from the ego. It's not the surgical removal of it. It's the freedom. Literally to be able to rule ourselves. We talk about, as I was saying in Aarti, Swaraj, self-rule. Well, most of us think about it just in terms of being able to vote and elect our officials and make our own rules. Well, yeah, that's true on a nation level, but on a personal level, do we actually have Swaraj? Are we actually in control of ourselves? Most of us are driven by that ignorance, those desires, that fear, that competition, that jealousy, that never-ending more. That identification from the past. So today is a beautiful day to get free of it. We're here on the banks of Ganga. Whatever it is that's holding you back, that's keeping you chained, give it to Ganga. She's flowing so full these days. We've pledged not to give her our plastic, not to give her our trash. Give her your ego instead. Give her that attachment instead. Give her that ignorance instead. Give her that darkness instead. She'd be so happy to take that. So we can really be free. And that's up to us. Before taking another question that's come in advance, if there's any questions here, I'm happy to take them. Yes.
I've been coming here for a couple of years, and I really have found a new way of approaching spirituality, I think, through all the yoga sessions and the yoga. I even have experienced the willing to open up to God and really open up to spirituality in a different way.
Wonderful.
Wondering how it's possible to come back to normal life and continue that and still have a high-profile career where the ego is also part of the play, and let that be, but still be in control.
Great. So, it's been here, opened up so beautifully spiritually, open to grace, open to God. Now he has to go back, and he says, so how to go back to normal life, back to a high-profile career that the ego is involved with. Well, first of all, the tragedy is that that's normal. Meaning, it's not about the external situation, but that somehow normal is to be wrapped up in my ego. Normal is to be stressed. Okay, this vacation for my ego was really nice. This vacation from stress was really nice. Now I've got to go back to normal life. Normal life needs to be regardless of the fact that we get up every day, that we go to work, that we earn money, that we go grocery shopping, that we run errands, that we come home, regardless of the subways we take, the taxis we take, the traffic we drive ourselves in, whatever it may be. Normal life needs to be a life in which ideally, at least what we're holding out, the awareness of the possibility of, that I'm doing all that, but I'm free on the inside. This is why the lotus is seen as this sacred flower, this beautiful flower, this symbol of so much in India. Why? Because it sits in the muck, but it doesn't get dirty. So it's not about, oh, you don't want to be dirty, okay, you can't go in the muck. Okay, you have to stay in an ashram, or you have to stay in a cave. You can't go to work. You can't get on the subway. Can't be stuck in traffic. No. In that, but that we stay not touched by it. Otherwise, it becomes a very shallow spirituality. If my inner peace, if my inner connection to God, if my openness to spirituality is contingent upon not getting stuck in traffic, not having to deal with really annoying employers or employees or co-workers or other drivers on the freeway, then it's not a full spirituality. You'll hear sometimes people will say things like, oh, I can't talk to her right now because it'll ruin my peace. I'm really peaceful, don't talk to me. Don't come here, I'm feeling very peaceful, just stay away. So this is a very shallow peace. Now, there's a time in our spiritual practice in which we need to be protected It's like the trees we plant. You have to put tree guards around the trees when they're small, because otherwise the monkeys come and eat them, or the cows come and eat them. But once that tree grows, the monkeys can swing on its branches and it doesn't do anything to the tree. And that's the goal of the spiritual practice is, yes, for a while I need to be protected. I need to have that metaphoric guard around me. But I should be able, if that's my calling, if that's my dharma, to be in that world, to have that career. And for some people it is. For some of us, our dharma is to be right here. But for some people, it's to be there. But to be there, to be able to carry this. This is where, when Lord Krishna gives this beautiful teaching to Arjuna, when Arjuna says, forget it, I'm going to go to the Himalayas and just meditate in a cave, and Bhagavan Krishna basically says, not so fast. That's not your dharma. And he gives him that beautiful teaching for all of us. Remember me and fight the war. There it is. Whatever your war may be. For Arjuna, it was a literal war. Bows and arrows, spears, all kinds of things. Actual horses, actual chariots. For us, the war may be different. That duty is different. That dharma is different. But the teaching is the same. Remember me and do your job. Not go out and do your job, forget me, and we'll talk after. Remember me. So remember, that's supposed to be the normal. Now I know it's not easy. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to go back, and how I think, that crazy competition, that crazy stress, that crazy wrap up in my ego, that is normal, then you're setting yourself up to step right back into suffering, into darkness. There is no spiritual teaching that says, thou shalt not do business. Now, the business, of course, has to be honest and have integrity and be beneficial in some way to the world. Has to be organic, be fair trade, treat its people right. I mean, it's got to follow all of those rules of integrity. But once you've got that, do your business. Let it be high profile, no problem. Again, spirituality never said, thou shalt not climb the ladder. Thou shalt always stay on the bottom rung. Never said that. But what's important is that we always remember, number one, I'm not the one climbing the ladder. That's the role I'm playing. And at the end of the day, take off your costume. Really, have a ritual. Have a ritual in the morning of putting it on and a ritual in the evening of taking it off. And all day long, as much as you can. Like in meditation, the mind wanders, you bring it back. It wanders, you bring it back. It wanders, you bring it back. Well, that's a teaching for life. In life, we forget, then we remember. Then we forget, we remember. We get caught up in the moment, then we remember. We lose ourselves, we remember. But develop a ritual. I think of it sometimes as a sort of like a zipping up a wetsuit type of thing. I'm going to go out, I'm going to play this role, but I'm going to remember. I'm going to remember it's just a role, and for you the role may be high-profile executive. It may be a CEO, it may be a president of a company. For some it may be a window washer. Doesn't matter what the role is. But go through a little ritual. I'm going to put on this costume. I've got to be the CEO, be the president. I've got to be administrative. I've got to be this. I've got to, whatever I may have to be. And then when you come home at night, take it off. Have a 2, 3, 5-minute ritual. Just taking it off. Because the problem becomes when I start to identify as the role. It's not that we can't go out and play different roles in society. We have to. The problem becomes when you start thinking you are that role. I am the president, as though somehow you were more worthy or more entitled or better on some level, separate on some level. We're all just playing different roles in this particular act in an infinite drama. This go around, okay, you're the high profile guy, I'm the sannyasi. Some other go around, we played different roles. This role, here's my, this time around, here's my costume. Yours may be a suit and tie. Whatever it may be. But we realize, I'm not this. I'm not any of it. Who I am is spirit, is love, is truth, is consciousness, is energy. Come back to that every day. And as much as you can during the day. Set a little ping on your phone. Really, I mean, it's very helpful. Otherwise, you get lost in what you're doing. A little ping every hour, every half hour, whatever it is. Just a moment, just to come back. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. And remember, lastly, that the ego doesn't actually have to come into it. You can play a role without identifying as it. You can do the president thing. One of the beautiful blessings of having been here with Puja Swamiji for so many years is watching him be the president of an ashram. Watching him have meetings and do all of that and, do all of what one would expect of someone who is not just a spiritual head, but an administrative head. Moving through all of the different aspects of that, whatever it may be. How it should be cleaner over there, more gardens over there, more flowers over here, more beautiful over here. Whatever it may be. But moving through playing that role. But never getting lost in it. Never identifying as it. Where he sits in his hut one day many years ago. Someone said to him something about, it was a comment about people and their roles and, high and low and who was, it was a very sort of ego-filled, role-filled type of comment. And Puja Swamiji looked at this person and said, he said, every morning, when I come out here in the early morning, he said, I walk in my garden every day at around 4. He says, and what I notice is the cat, there's almost always a cat who lives there. She gives birth every year. Then her daughters give birth there. He said, the cat is asleep on my asan. He said, during the day, I sit here. And in the night, the cat comes and sleeps here. He said, the minute I'm gone, my asan is the cat's. He says, what is there to be attached to? What is there to be proud of? Yeah, while I'm here, I'm sitting on the asan, I'm the president. And all night long, the cat's on the asan. What are you identified as? What are you stuck with? For a short period of time, you're in that role. Play it. But don't identify as it. Okay? Good. Wonderful. We will start with your question tomorrow night. Will you be here with us tomorrow? Wonderful. So you can, after the satsang, just either let them know and they'll give it to me in writing in advance, or sit right where you are tomorrow night and we will start with your question tomorrow. Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow.